All right. It's not a huge. There you go. It says recording now. We're live.
What does your day look like? What did you get done today?
Oh, that's a really cool question. So I kind of have to look at my calendar to think about that. Let's see.
That's nice. That means you've done a few things that you want to. That's cool.
So what did I do today? Well, I did some work on kind of refining a pitch deck and some business development around it. I met with a guy, his name is Gary, for the first time. He had been referred to me by a couple people. I had a pretty cool conversation with him, which I think we're going to follow up tonight at 6 o'clock.
Cool.
I bought 2 new guitars, which is something close to an addiction that I have. So I'll show you. Whoops, wrong way.
You're a guitar player?
Yeah, I'm a guitar player. I have a music studio in my basement.
That's awesome. Are you you're in front of your computer, right?
I'm in front of my computer, yep.
Type in aviateaudio.com.
Aviate, how do I spell that?
AVIATE.
Okay. Aviateaudio.com. This is pretty cool. So this is a pedal control board where you can control the settings on your pedal directly from a touch point on your guitar.
Yep, it's a wireless effects pedal controller. It's a button that turns on and off as many pedals as you want. You can have them all synced in together or not.
So it's basically, oh, my dog's gonna go a little crazy over the siren. It's basically the same idea as a foot switch, but you're able there to tap it directly on your guitar instead, right?
Yep. Yeah, I just muted myself because of city sounds.
It's all good. They got to learn how to deal with it anyway. So if they start getting too rowdy, I'll shoo them away. But this is a cool idea. What it makes me think of is if you're up on a stage and you want to be able to run around with your guitar and not have to come back and work a foot pedal to switch between different things, you could have a little touch point right there.
Exactly. And you can have multiple buttons linked to different pedals. So you can preset each button to different pedals, or you could have like a chain of pedals linked to one button, and it turns on 3 pedals at once and turns all 3 of them off at the same time.
That is pretty cool. And I see they got a demo with an octave up turning on. I'll have to watch these when we're on later, but
yeah,
this is a cool idea.
Yeah, this is a company I co-founded actually.
Cool.
And we're out of Buffalo. Techstars and all the people that you met are a big part of why we were able to do half the stuff we were able to do.
This is pretty slick too. Your marketing page is pretty solid here.
Thanks. That's what I do. So appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I didn't know that. I was piping right into your, giving you a big pat on the back there. See.
I gave myself that though.
No, this is a very, very cool idea. And as you can tell from the stuff behind me, it comes close to home. So
I'd love to get you in our studio and like have you demo it if you'd like. We got our first well, we've had many sample units, but our final production units, our first sample of the final production units come in 3 days ago. And we have like 3 really good working units in the office right now. So we're happy.
Without sticking it on my without sticking it on my pick guard. Like, could I have it just like in my pocket or like hold it in?
Yeah, you could have it wherever you want. Yeah, you could have it wherever you want.
I got some guitars that I want to protect the pick guard on it. They're a little valuable.
No, yeah, I understand. Actually, we that was an issue that we came up to when we were doing like our research. So we use a certain type of adhesive that doesn't damage your guitar, but obviously, like, you don't have to take that risk on our demo product.
See, I feel like I could like almost drop it inside of one of the cutaways or something like that, or have it in my hand inside one of the cutaways, and then just reach down and tap it with my hand.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on. So there's 2. The reason it's like good to have it right on your pick guard or something is because there's this mode called momentary mode, where when you hold it down, the effect is on, and we let it go, it's off. So you can strobe the effect on and off as fast as you want.
That's pretty cool.
But if not, you can put it on the back of your you can put it on the back of the guitar too.
Yep.
And then while you're like moving between chords, you can just like turn it on with your thumb.
Where's your studio at?
It's at the incubator at UB.
Yeah, we should line this up. This would be a ton of fun.
Cool. Yeah, I'm already planning it ahead in my head.
Okay.
I'll give you some dates that are possible for us, and then we'll make it happen.
Very cool. And then, do I need to bring like my own pedals that I want to demo it on, or?
Yeah, we have stuff. If you want to bring your own stuff, you can. Like, it's just we might not be able to do it right away because of all the distancing stuff. We're not even allowed to go back into our own offices. Yeah. But whenever things start opening up, we'll make sure this happens.
If you want a demo in the meantime, you can loan me one by mail. I'll mail it back to you, and I could do it in my studio in my basement.
That's true. Where are you out of?
I'm in Rochester, New York.
I could just send one over to you.
That'd be cool. I'd be happy to put a demo together, and I can film it while I do it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So I'm putting together, so we have like an artist roster to kind of when we have all of our units and we're launching, we want them to do demos and such. We have like a list of criteria for the videos. So there's like a demo video, there's a testimonial video, there's a song video, a song section where like you can play a whole song with it. So we're trying to get like little different types of clips, and it's like a Google folder, and then you can put in all the stuff you record into it.
Very cool. Yeah, sign me up. If you want to send me one, do you want me to drop my address in the chat here?
Yeah, please. I mean, I have your email.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can email it to me, I'd like to see how that could happen. I think you're.
Oh yeah, you're right. When you said address, you meant like your actual location. Yep. If you can email me, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, appreciate it. How long have you been into music? What do you mostly play and listen to?
A lot of blues, a lot of reggae, some stuff that's kind of in the classic rock space. I really like bluegrass.
Cool.
And I like making stuff that's kind of mixtures of different styles of music. So I'll do some stuff that's kind of got hip hop or spoken word mixed in with kind of bluegrass or stuff
that's
like
awesome.
that.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that. You always have to have ties to some type of art, I think. Just in general, to be a good functioning human being.
I think that might be true. I think that like having a creative outlet, like if you don't have some kind of creative outlet like that lets that part of yourself like express itself into the universe, I think you end up very bottled up, and I think it comes out in like explosive negative ways. I think that's where like a lot of people's like pent up anger and shit like that comes from. I
agree completely. I was exploring the concept with a friend. If sports come into the same category as art, because sports doesn't give the same level of freedom. It's more of a controlled exercise to get better at a certain activity versus,
right?
Yeah, because I think if you're doing music or if you're doing art or if you're doing like graphic design or like videography, like there's like your creativity can be expressed through it. While if you're doing sports, it's a little bit more competitive, I think.
It depends on the sport, right? So think of like if a gymnastics person hits the perfect routine or a diver hits the perfect dive, like that's them being in the zone in the same way that you would say someone who's like a painter is in the zone and just creativity is flowing from their brain to paper or whatever it is, the material.
I completely agree. I think it depends on the sport. So like I play, so I'm a soccer player.
Me too.
Yeah. So like I would say like being part of the team and playing the game to win, that's like the competitive part of it, but the art of it is like when you practice and learn a new skill and like make a skill your own, make a play your own, make a position your own and things like that. So I think there's probably a intersection there.
I think there is, and you could take someone who picks up the ball from midfield, say like take a Lionel Messi as an example.
Right.
Picks up the ball above the box, learns to turn, get a sight of the goal, beat a defender, beat a second defender, whatever it is, and curl the ball around the keeper. Each one of those is like a brush stroke, right? The difference is that there's a human fighting back against those brush strokes in his case. Right. Whereas the artist, like pure artist that's working only with a material, is able to work with the material without feeling, hopefully, like it's fighting them. But in the same way, you can also hear an artist say the material is fighting me. Like if they're working with like clay or they're working with something and they feel the bounds of limitation, that same thing happens there too. That can kind of push them out of the zone.
Right. And I think the creativity comes in, like your concept can fight you too. Like if you're trying to create a
like that too.
You could be stuck into a concept that might be like, because of your society or the people that you're surrounded by, that you can't explore a concept as far as you want to because of things you're tied to, especially as an artist,
I think that's true as well.
you know?
I think you're dead on.
Yeah.
I didn't know
cool.
what to expect coming into the conversation today, but I definitely didn't know that it was going to be about like the zone of creativity and stuff like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I love getting into conversations which I have no idea what they'll lead into.
You got to send me this afterwards. I actually made a YouTube channel for conversations that I don't know where they're going to head. I call it the open coffee forum, where you just like, you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, those are the best. Because it's like, it's cool because like any individual that has taken the time to kind of pursue their own self, which I think is like, you know, you and myself in terms of as an entrepreneur in whatever capacity, they've also pursued like their own like relationships, their place in society. They've also like, it's not just business and stuff that they pursue all kinds of things like art and like happiness.
It's how you see the world. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so you can always have so many different, I think, tangents and conversations where lots of things intersect with people that have stepped outside the system to a degree, I think.
So I'm going to throw an outside the system idea here. I've been thinking about putting this book together on people who removed parts of their name, and it's something like finding your name, and just taking like my story, if you want to be interested in this, your story like you were talking about, and then one of my friends who went by D for a long time, and his real name is Dujuan.
Right.
And just having like a handful of people, I was thinking maybe 6, if we can find 6 people, and tell the story of why you hid your name, like whether it was difficult for other people to say, or it wasn't like popular, you were trying to fit in more, or whatever it is. What caused you to stop doing it? And then at what point of this like larger meta journey that you're talking about, did you actually see the value in your own name? And maybe you're not there yet, but I have this idea of like, people put together books that are a cumulative story across a bunch of different people and have like a common thread. I think that would be a really cool thread.
I'm 100% for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Afterwards, if you send me this video, I'll float it to my buddy who I was talking. He wants to write a cybersecurity book as well.
That's awesome.
But I'll float it to him and say like, what if we started finding a few people who like kind of did the same thing with their name? And I did that with my name. I went by Matt for a lot of my life, and I prefer Mattaniah. You can see it actually still shows up in Matt in the Zoom calls, because that's what my name's in there as.
Right. Yeah, I think so. For me, I lived in a lot of different countries and so when I start in a country, the way I represent my name is different, where after I've been there for a while, I see it differently, where initially it's always about fitting in, and then eventually you find your place, and then now you can be yourself more.
That's an interesting idea too, right? Like finding your place. Like what?
Right.
Because you mean it partially as like within society, partially as like finding a home where like you can settle down type of things, but it's also like finding your place in the universe. And
I think especially when you go into a new culture, I think it's completely okay that I have to work into that culture. I'm fine with that, as long as once I've worked myself into that culture, I get to express myself outwards, instead of like, if I come into a culture and bring my culture and there's no intersection within our culture, we're never gonna collaborate. You know, I think after like being here for a while, when I first introduced myself, I'm not gonna go into my name because it's just not relevant to our initial introduction. But after we've developed some level of relationship, now it's relevant. Now I can confidently go into my name.
Such a cool way to think about, like, what if that's the answer to like immigration problems? Like what if what you just said is like, what if that was such a simple way forward to tell people, like, when you first get here, like, here's the first year of your life, this is what it's going to look like. Try making your name legible and understandable to other people. And then after a year of being there, what if you just start introducing yourself by your full name?
Right.
And I just feel like there's so much complexity around a lot of these like big world problems. And what if it's just as simple as like, we can tell when people are starting to integrate themselves into a different culture that they moved into by the way that they say their name and the way they ask other people to say their name.
Remember, we were having this conversation, and I told you about this guy, Mike Cardis, that we talked about leadership with.
I think so.
Yeah, and so that's it. we talked about this exact topic to a certain degree. I think it comes down to, so like we could say education is the key to most things, right? But
maybe.
what if,
I'm not sure about that, but go ahead.
okay, but like bear with me, right? So let's say education, like if everybody is educated enough on both ends of the spectrum for somebody to come in and accept a culture while somebody else coming in to be accepting of a new culture, those are like levels of education that both communities need to have before they intersect, right?
Maybe.
Now,
You're gonna have to slow down a little bit. You're starting to move a little too fast for me to follow.
sorry. So like, yeah, so if they came together and they had prior education of the other community, they can intersect better.
Okay.
But what you're saying is, what if we don't need to like educate them prior and make it a simple task of, and then the task itself is the education.
There you go.
Right?
Think of joining a new sports team, right? Back to your sports analogy.
Right.
That's basically what happens when you join a new team. You join on and people call you whatever the hell they want because they just have to be able to bark something at you while you're about to be passed the ball.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy. Yeah, I've been called the red shirt, black shorts.
Yep.
Brown guy, whatever works to get the ball to me.
There's utility in that, right? And then
100%.
as that person gets to know you over the course of, let's say they play sports with you for another year, eventually, hopefully, this doesn't always happen, but eventually you hopefully have a conversation that says something like, hey man, I've been playing with you for a while. Like, what's your name? What do you prefer to be called by? Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
And that usually takes a while.
I feel like if we can take that sports analogy and apply it to like society, definitely would be a game changer. Because so in Dubai, we have an influx of immigrants from all over the world. Like everybody speaks a little bit of English.
Yeah.
So that's how they get by. But Arabic is also commonly spoken. But when I play, like some of the first words that I learned in Arabic, I don't speak Arabic that well, but some of the first words I learned was pass the ball, through ball, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Like those are like the three words that I learned. And I think like when you come into society, if you could learn those few words that like is applicable to your initial introduction.
Right. Like what if you knew pass it here, I'm coming through and I'm right here or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Because those transcend beyond sports. That's like your food, you might be being passed to you, coming through might be like, get out of my way. I'm trying to make it through this space. And I'm here is like, I'm present. I have my hand up type of thing. Right. And I think that those transcend just sports. I think that the way of declaring where you are in space, how you can help and how someone can help you might be close to like the universal need for communication.
100%. I wish I could show you a video of one of my we never took videos, but like when I was 12 and we played like street soccer, and you'd have these like 3 kids from Sudan, the 3 Sri Lankan kids, the 4 kids from Iran, the other kids from the UK, and then the 2 Filipino kids, and that's like the team, and nobody speaks the same language, and we all have these different ways to like play together.
Yep. Yeah, I do the same thing every Saturday and Sunday. I play soccer with a bunch of friends in Rochester. Yeah. And there's probably 6 different languages spoken on the field. There's people who are speaking French. There's people who are speaking more French Canadian. There's people who are speaking patois because they're Jamaican. Right. There's people who are speaking Spanish out there. There's people who are speaking Chinese and Japanese. And there's a couple Korean guys that come.
That's awesome.
And you can kind of tell when people have hit a point of like they're not sure they can communicate. And recently I've been using this more, but my nickname is OK. And one of the reasons my nickname is OK is I did this quick Google search, and I don't know how I got on this, Ben, but I was just like in a weird state of mind in Google searching common translation things. And they found out that the word OK has no origin. They don't know where it came from. It like descended on the planet or was like very early spoken by cavemen or cave people and is just in every language. So I can go to anyone out there and just be like, okay, or I'm okay, or you're okay, or are you okay? And that's like one of the most common ways that you could translate you don't even have to translate. It's a word that's used in every single language to a certain extent.
That's so interesting. I always thought okay was an English term.
Yeah, feel free to double check me, but it's actually
I believe you.
Yeah. It's like it descended, it's like either embedded in humanity or like descended from above. It's like this crazy thing. So I had a bunch of wild, like ultra creative weeks a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I did is start using that a little bit more. I like the idea of like being able to have a name that is understood in every culture. I thought that was cool as hell.
Yeah, That is super cool. How did they come to call you that in the soccer game though?
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into me. So a few weeks ago, I got really excited because I was giving this speech for like the dreams of the city, my dreams for the future of the city of Rochester and to Buffalo and kind of nearby cities. And I was laying out this idea of, instead of calling things the Rust Belt, which is one of the things they call this region a Rust Belt, that I said that was kind of a negative connotation, and I wanted to make a positive connotation and call it the Refinement Belt. And I thought we could start talking about our region that way. And I got really excited, and my family had me mental hygiene arrested, and I ended up in a mental institution for like a week. So again, crazy story. I know that this is recorded and it could look whatever way, but that's what actually happened.
That's awesome.
So when I ended up there, I said, like, my name is Mattaniah Harp, and everyone had trouble with it. So I said, just call me okay. So I was going through a mental institution telling people, like, I'm okay. Are you okay? You doing okay? And people didn't know what to do with it. They couldn't figure out like if I was just messing around or like all this. I made it like a giant meta joke about the whole thing.
Dude, that's so hilarious because one thing that stands out to me when we talked last time and this time is when I say, hey, how are you doing? You're like, I'm okay.
Yeah,
like
I am okay.
Because most people say like, I'm doing good, I'm doing fine. But like, okay is never, like, I feel like isn't necessarily a standard when somebody asks you, how are you doing?
And I think maybe we try a little too hard to be doing good, and we try too hard to be fine. But I think if you can be okay, you can be okay with a lot of things. I think it's a different level of being.
That. Yeah, I try to, whenever somebody asks me how I'm feeling, I try to say it as it is. Like if I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. If I'm excited, I'm excited. If I'm sad, I'm sad.
Yep.
So I try my best not to land in the middle, because then like I'm not accepting my own day.
Yep.
You know?
I think you can be all those things. I think you can be excited or overwhelmed or sad and still be okay. If you told other people those things, they might not think you're doing fine, but you could be okay and still be all those things. That might be what your life is like.
It's true. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? I like wild conversations. Like I like I'm kind of my nickname that they gave me in there was Tarzan the Jungle Cracker is what they called me in there. And I don't know if do you know what cracker means in American society?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. So like it's kind of derogatory, but it's okay. I thought it was hilarious. And Tarzan is kind of calling me like a wild man, and I have sunglasses on, but like I had wild man hair and like it wasn't being taken care of. So I think stuff like that's funny, and I think that it gets us closer to having like the wild or wild-like experience that was part of humanity for a very long time, that has shit in it that's like really funny.
Yeah.
And I think that we've worked so hard at being like fine and being good and all these other things that we've like chopped that part of our humanity out of us and thrown it away. And I think it's a massive shame.
I think the reason when I moved here to the States, the reason I decided to stay is because it wasn't a permanent move. I was planning to move back to Dubai, but the reason I decided to stay is because of exactly that, because I met more people that could have that level of conversation more comfortably. And I think there's this, and if you were in Dubai or Sri Lanka, the society just isn't there as a whole to have these types of conversations. And I think not everybody in America is having these conversations, but I feel like more people than other places are. Great book I read talked about this concept, not the art of war, the war of art.
Cool. That sounds intriguing.
It's a great book, but the one thing that really stood out to me is he defined the artist, like cultures and societies, as the artist versus the fundamentalist, right? So like the American society would be more of an artist because they are more secure and stable enough to pursue the artistic side of their being, versus like Sri Lanka or Dubai, they're still like coming from a survival, fundamental, like I need to get food on the table mentality, where they don't have that freedom to explore those conversations in artistic field. When I say
that's a really good way to put it, and it'd be a really I might have to read this book now. I would say that the United States is such a varied ecosystem that you would find that even parts of the United States are much more like the Sri Lanka fundamentalist part, especially if you think more rural, people where there's subsistence farming, and that when you get to these like bigger cities, and I would even count Buffalo and Rochester as part of that, that's really where the art level starts to come in, because there are people who are taking care of the fundamentals for you.
Yeah, I agree. And it's an interesting intersect. Vinod Khosla and Sam Altman were having the interview that I was listening to the other day. And they're talking about how before you would be living in, if you're an entrepreneur born into a town or anywhere, and you need to pursue your entrepreneurship or your freedom, you go to a city to discover that. So like because the city has the infrastructure to handle you failing, because the infrastructure will keep you up because you can keep going. But the concept that I found that was interesting is cities are no longer useful because now we have the internet. So you don't need to leave your town to get that infrastructure in place to hold your hand when you fall down.
Yep.
You know?
I think it's an interesting point. I think that cities might be needed less, but I don't think they're not needed at all. I think you still need some massive people, and it might not be that you need to be in like one of the huge cities anymore. You might not need to be in like New York City, Miami, Boston, LA, right. San Francisco. You might be able to do that in some of the cities that are like one of the top 50 cities in the country in terms of population. Right. Yeah.
Right. I think, but I'm thinking more of like in another 50, 100 years kind of perspective where like, I feel like big cities are going to be less and less relevant because like the reason you go to a city is because you want more resources. And if you can access those resources without going to those cities, like, is there really a need to go to a city?
You want more centralized resources, to put a fine point on it, right?
Yeah.
You want those, go there because you want centralized resources. Yeah.
Right.
There are plenty of situations where people leave a city because they want more resources, but they want the decentralized resources. They want it to be less distilled and less concentrated. And that's when, like, that's kind of a pathway that like investment bankers take. They go in and they get into the city where there's these hyper concentrated accumulated resources, but both financial and in terms of the goods that they're manipulating. And then, you know, when they're 45, they have this thing where they say like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Right. And that's what people call like the rat race, or getting off of the hamster wheel and things like that. Right. They go and decentralize.
Yeah. That's cool.
But there's a tension there. I mean, there's definitely tension between those two modes of being.
Yeah.
Which like, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, if you spin that out a little bit and say there's a tension between those two modes of being, I think that's like the underlying tension on like the nature of existence that American politics plays out on. And that American politics is this like hyper abstracted layer that's saying, you know, you could either want to be in a city where you have this overly concentrated, like very massive accumulation of wealth and resources dumped right there, or you could be in this completely decentralized place where you have to scrounge around for more of the fundamental resources. That's like the rural America side. Right. And we have political parties that basically separate those two and say there's only one or the other, when in reality there's all of these different shades of gray in between. But I think that's where American politics gets its basis from, is from that like different mode of being type of difference.
That's interesting. I think so here's another tangent, right? So I think businesses in general now have a shorter lifetime, and if you start a new idea, there's a shorter lifetime, and then you need to have either a plan to end the business or change the business within 5 or 10 years versus like those old business that would survive for much longer.
Depends on the business. So if you look at like wealth management or hospital systems, they still have hyper long lifetimes.
That's true.
For the most part, I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like new concepts. I'm mostly thinking like startups and things like that. But like if you take that concept and you apply it to, you know, what we're talking about in terms of cities and, you know, non-cities. What if, like, let me try to articulate this well. If systems are being built at a higher, like more systems are being built than systems are dying off. You know, so like some systems need to die for other systems to live. So like, it's like, that's kind of the battle, I think, of society, whether it's political or cultural or everything. It's like there is new systems thanks to globalizations, thanks to just us interacting with more people at a more rapid pace. There's just more things happening and more new things. And like the only way there's a good cohesion is if the people that are dying off don't consider that new system as a bad thing, but as a transitioning point, and they can happily exit or happily remove themselves and call it an end for a system. Like, I think there's so many people, I'm not talking about business in general, I'm just in mindsets, that you have so many systems that that you're born with and you grow up under, that you're not willing to compromise on as other systems are introduced to you as you get older.
Yeah, I think that we could probably have a very long running conversation about that. So the nature of the changing systems that are around you and what that does to kind of destabilize the systems that you have come to expect over the course of a lifetime.
Right.
There's a huge conversation to be had there. And, you seem like a pretty young guy. You're very intelligent. And, you speak very well, especially for someone your age. But you can also imagine, I bet that you can imagine it if 30 years from now or 40 years from now, someone said, we're going to get rid of the internet. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to be upset.
Well, and why would that be? Because it became such an integral part of your life as far as like information discovery and figuring out who's doing what, right, figuring out who you want to talk to, who you want to connect to, like all these different things.
Right.
And
I think it's like, I think when it comes to that point, like ideally I would love to come to that point where that stops. And I feel like people love teaching other people. So if I learn something some way, I want to teach somebody the same way. But if now there's a better way to teach, like for them to learn, and that doesn't include me, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Right. So like if you build a business a certain way and it worked and it was great, and you want to teach that to your kid, but your kid says now there's a better way, now you're annoyed because you lived your whole life building it a certain way and you now want to pass on this wisdom. But if you took it in if you like shifted your mentality and saw it as like, because I've built my system this way, there is the path for them to build their system that way.
I like that.
I like
that a lot.
Yeah, because I feel like if it came to that point where somebody said, all right, the internet's not a thing anymore, I have to make a decision where, okay, am I going to learn the new thing or am I going to stop? Like, it's like if I either learn or I stop. And if I'm stopping, I'm not going to try to influence the way they do it beyond that, because I'm not part of it. But if I am part of it, then I'm going to learn it and then be effective within it. Ideally, I would like to come to that point where I don't become the person that stops the growth of systems. So hopefully I would exit, or like I would stop and just relax and let other people take over. Very,
very cool thought pattern there. So I would say you've already done a couple of things that I'm interested in following up on, and I do have a hard stop at 6:00. I got another thing I have to jump onto.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the conversation, and I would love to be involved in your demo for your product. Mm-hmm. And I would love to keep the conversation going. I think that, you definitely have an interesting perspective that I'll share. If you send me the recording from this, I'll upload it as a private or unlisted video on YouTube, and you can take a look back at it. And then I'll share with you a couple other conversations I've had that might be similar, and maybe we can start having them with 3 people involved.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. I was, after we had that conversation the other day, I was super pumped for this meeting because I had a feeling like it would be something like this.
Cool.
It's just cool because you meet people like that just have this open dialogue, and it's just awesome because the conversation is to discover as opposed to talk.
Right.
You know, and I feel like I've learned a few things through this conversation, so
that's
I am grateful.
Cool.
Time for that.
Well, thank you for joining on and doing it then. I'll look forward to when you send me the email with the link. I'll definitely put it up. And then if you like it, I would say let's make it like a public video on YouTube, and you can share out what you learned on that front. I think it would be a cool conversation to kind of have it hit the public space.
I have no problem with it being public. That'd be super cool.
Very cool. All right, well, let's, I think this is kind of a good spot to stop. And why don't we both look back over the video, watch it, and kind of come up with 2 or 3 threads that we want to pull out the next time we talk.
Sounds good. That sounds like a plan.
Cool. Well, thanks again for your time, Kanishka. And tell me if I ever say your name incorrectly again. But this was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. It was great.
Right back at you. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
See ya.